Hector, you're good to go.
Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Hector Verdugo. I'm the Senior Vice President of Admissions for Academy of Art University, San Francisco, California, USA. Hope everybody's having a wonderful morning, a wonderful evening. I don't know where you're at, but I'm sure you're somewhere out there in the world. If you don't mind, first thing I want to do is, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the whole workshop, is just giving everybody the big shout outs and figuring out where everybody's at. So first thing we want to do is take a look at the chat button down below. If you have not already, please go ahead and click on that chat button. And then when you have the option to chat, select all panelists and attendees so that we can see everybody here in the chat. This will help us to stay engaged with everybody. We have a wonderful workshop tonight. We have Robert Curry here. He's going to be doing some really cool stuff with us tonight. So we'll get to that in a second. But before we get started in the chat, let's say, where's everybody from? Rolando is out there from San Diego, Robert. We have Colorado in the house, Seattle. We have Kevin watching from Miami, South Carolina, Phoenix, New Jersey, Washington, D.C. India is in the house tonight, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Ecuador, Dallas, Texas, Indiana, Los Angeles, Cincinnati, Nigeria is in the house tonight. San Diego, San Leandro, Oakland in the house, North Carolina, Portland, Oregon. I had Rob as a teacher in 2010, Bonnie says. So lots of people out there. Hi from Puerto Rico. Hey, Jessica. Thanks for being here tonight. So tonight, I'm going to go ahead and have a screen share done really quickly, just so everybody understands. If you want to participate tonight with 3D draping, if you go onto your Instagram tonight, you're going to be able to participate by basically putting any of your work, anything you'd like to post, even if it's not from tonight. If you've done some really cool fashion work and you want to just show it off, go ahead and hashtag 3D draping challenge for tonight. Robert Curry is going to be showing us some cool stuff, but please feel free to participate, follow along, put your best work up there. We want everybody to basically share what they're doing out there. So thank you so much. Now, as always, I want to make sure everybody's aware of some of the things that we have coming up. Alexis Cohen says, miss you, Rob. Always loved your draping class. So what I'd like to do, though, is just make sure that we take a quick second to promote some of the other online events that we have coming up. So if anybody out there is just wondering, hey, what's it like to be an online student? What would it be like at the Academy? How do I learn about online? How do I learn about being a virtual on-site student? We have a ton of different things. On Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to be doing a workshop going through the online format, showing everybody how this works, how to be successful this summer or even this fall if you're looking at taking classes online due to just shelter in place. So feel free, take a look at that. We have 2 really exciting workshops coming up. Next Tuesday, we're going to have photography. Because everybody's inside, what we're going to be focusing on is learning how to do photography indoors. We're going to be talking about lighting. We're going to be talking about how to use your cell phone if you don't have a fancy camera right now, but we want to basically make it fun and engaging. So please feel free to participate with that one. And the next link I'm going to drop is the following Tuesday. That's May 19th. This is going to be a music workshop held by Brad Hughes. He's a Grammy-winning artist. He's done a lot of really cool stuff. And so Brad Hughes is going to be knocking this out for us 2 Tuesdays from now on May 19th. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Mr. Robert Curry. So if you don't know much about him, he's volunteered to help us out tonight and do something really fun with you out there. So I hope tonight is a wonderful night for everybody and we have a lot of fun. So introducing Rob. Rob was born in England. Rob graduated from Leeds University in 1994. He moved directly to London, having been selected for the position of apprentice to couturier. Bruce Oldfield, the designer. So basically he worked for Bruce Oldfield, the designer famously associated with creating many outfits for Princess Diana. So pardon my French, I apologize if I murdered any of those words there, folks. So in 1996, he moved to Vivienne Westwood as a dressmaker in the couture atelier, where he specialized in corsetry, and evening wear. Within 12 months, he became premier of the atelier, responsible for creation of showpieces for the women's wear Paris collections. He also began teaching at Middlesex University, Westminster University, and at Central St. Martin's School for Art. From this time, he also created many showpieces for Julian MacDonald, then the creator and director of Givenchy. So his work for Vivienne Westwood has also been showed in the US at both the Met in New York and also the De Young in San Francisco, where he was given lectures in conjunction with Yves Saint Laurent and Vivienne Westwood exhibitions. Curry is also currently our Associate Director of 3D Draping for the School of Fashion here at the Academy of Art University. So without further ado, once again, pardon my French. I'm sorry if I murdered any words out there, Robert. So I want to pass it over to Robert here. He's going to go ahead and take over the workshop. So I'll be here in the chat for everybody with questions and make sure that we have a good time. Thank you, Robert.
Cool. Hey, really glad to have you with us, guys. So when they asked me to do this, I was thinking, you know, there were so many directions and styles that we could work with. I was also very aware that we're quite limited, obviously, with you're just coming at me from a computer here, and oftentimes I know from filming online classes when you're draping, I get in front of the mannequin. I can't drape behind the mannequin. So I thought, okay, so let's think what would be really great as a workshop and for stuff that they could do, and probably stuff that they maybe haven't thought about before. If you've taken a class with me, you've done it before probably, and I've talked about this. So I thought maybe the jersey and stretch would be a really good idea. I'm not a knitwear designer, by the way, by no means. So please, no knitting questions. This is very much about cut and sew knit. And really, the reason I'm doing this is to get a sense of having you understand the concept of language in cutting. Very much like the world and different countries, there are many, many different ways of communicating with different language, but it's all the same thing. And this is what cutting and draping is. Cutting and draping has many different styles and techniques. Jersey specifically is a fabric, say for example, two extremes. Jersey does not like to be tailored. With jersey, with the flexibility of it, with the stretch quality, I know a lot of you, if you're taking fashion classes, you're taking pattern making classes, you'll be learning the basic blocks. You'll be learning what we call metric cutting, metric pattern cutting. And this is basically tailoring. It's your basic blocks. It's your bodice blocks and your pencil skirts. It's bust darts, it's princess seams, it's all the orthodox seam placements that we know through cutting. What I'm going to offer today is almost the very antithesis of that. And it's not an either or thing. It's just a different language, you know? So if you think about tailoring, say being English, what we're doing now is we're still talking and we're still communicating by the way we're working, but it's French instead of English. It's just a different sensibility, because different fabrics don't like to be treated the same way. What we're looking at today is very much experimenting with fabric and experimenting with form and shape. So this is coming, again, from the opposite way of maybe a lot of the way that you've been taught. And again, it's not an either or, it's another way of working. Metric pattern cutting is your meat and potatoes. It's your base from which everything else comes. And so it's important. So I don't want pattern making teachers getting angry with me for saying this is how you should do it. This is not what I'm saying. This is specifically looking at something very, very different, where we can take a very, very different approach. What I'm very aware of in a lot of schools, and in every school, we need our technical classes that teach us the basics. We need to understand how to swing darts. We need to understand about fit and about the relationships of various body zones. We're going to be talking a lot about body zones. And it's, to me, this is a very freeing. So you're learning a lot of technique. When you're drafting, we're talking about a 16th of an inch. We're talking about ease. We're talking about all of these very technical things. And, you know, it's very exacting, and it's theory, and it's what you need, and it's absolutely solid, and this will give you your foundation. When working with a fabric like jersey, though, that has a very different quality, jersey does not like to be worked in this language. You know, when was the last time you saw a jersey tailored jacket with princess seams or bust darts, or like, it just, jersey doesn't like to be handled like that. And so when we're working with jersey and experimenting with jersey, we have to think in a different way. And the way that jersey loves, and this is really cool and what makes it really great, and a lot of you will be really happy to hear this, we're not going to be making any patterns. And working this way does not involve making any patterns. We're drawing straight on the fabric. We're drawing shapes. We're thinking about body zones in particular. This is very much, I like to make analogies in terms of how we're approaching the cut and form. It's very much, and it stems from the work of a designer who is the most important designer for me that ever lived, is Madeleine Vionnet. So if you're a Vionnet lover, give us a shout out, because she is goddess to us all. She basically invented 20th century fashion in terms that she created a whole new language of cutting. She's famous for putting fabric on the bias. That's not really what she did. It's what she's famous for, that everybody knows, oh yeah, bias cutting, but they don't really know what that means. In terms of bias, for anybody who's unfamiliar, fabric has a warp and a weft. And with metric cutting and general tailoring, your warp, your selvage, goes with gravity. Your weft is at 90 degrees. Well, Madeleine, exactly, she is amazing. What Vionnet did was she was looking at more fluid. She was actually, even though Paul Poiret is credited with getting rid of the corset, before she had her own label, she was at a couture house called the Calosers. I don't want to turn this into a fashion history lecture. I want to get going with shapes, but I think we need to know the basis of where we're coming from. It's not just that she's famous for bias cutting, which she is. She invented a whole new language for cutting that fabric, because she realized when you put the fabric, so here's our selvage, here's our warp thread, which is the stronger thread. What she was doing is she was putting the fabric where the warp and the weft were 45 degrees to gravity. Okay, a lot of people talk about a bias grain. There's no such thing as a bias grain. Fabric can be on bias, but the grain is always the selvage is always the warp thread. But bias is when that warp thread is at 45 degrees to gravity. And she realized that when the fabric was like this on the body, even though it wasn't a stretch fabric, that it had an elasticity, and this lattice affected this. And meaning, it's a total game changer. I actually think, I would say, if you ask me what's the most difficult cutting, is bias cutting. If you want to, and it's my favorite. I love. There's nothing I love better than doing a 30s style, liquid, crepe back satin 30s, like slinky gown. Problem with bias cutting, in tailoring, when you do an alteration on the seam here, that's where you see the change. When you're doing big bias dresses, you make an alteration on the pattern, on the bust or the waist over here, and you think, oh, it's good here. Something gets messed up down here, like way around the corner. It's all a balancing, because the fabric is more alive and it drops. Anyway, what she realized is that you can't use the same seams. You can't use those basic side seams and printer seams and bust darts in the same way, because this fabric is now alive and it's moving. So she realized now that the seams had to be placed in more in conjunction with the warp and the weft, which are 45 degrees to gravity. So basically, she was looking at the body, which is leading us, I'm going to get to my point at some point, which is leading us to where we're going right now. She is the mother of what we're about to do. She's the root of it all. She realized that she needed to look at the body in terms of a series of geometric shapes. And that's how she saw the body. So she wasn't seeing the body. We know as students of fashion and of pattern makers, you know, you look at a tailored pattern, you can see that bust shape and the armhole, and it's all pretty much there on the pattern. But when we start to think about the body in terms of geometry, so she was using circles and diamonds and gussets and rectangles, triangles, so This is hi. Hey, Meredith. Good to have you with us. Sorry. Long time. Oh, it's good to have some, let's say old people from way back. You know what I mean? So anyway, so yeah, she started seeing the body in a sense of geometric shapes. And this created a whole new language of cutting. And really, she is the mother of our inspiration for today. You can probably see in the background here is a couple of, if anybody knows what these are, kind of an iconic top from Vivienne Westwood, which is our starting point today, where we're going to be jumping off from. And it's a top called the Squiggle top. Hey, Tria, good to have you with us. It's basically, she's the mother of punk. Vivienne and Malcolm McLaren were the parents of punk, so I guess in a way she's the grandma of punk. Because without her, there'd be no Westwood, there'd be no Rei Kawakubo, there'd be no Yoji Yamamoto. She's the designer that they all go back to and revere as, you know, like the most important thing. So what we're looking at now, like I said, I wanted to do Jersey because I wanted to take it so far away from your general pattern making classes and your draping classes of draping basic shapes. And I wanted to kind of get abstract. And this is kind of, I always say, this is like punk-ass pattern cutting, especially because it comes from the mother of punk, which is very apropos of that. So what we're looking at now, and again, I make the analogy here, at the turn of the 20th century, when artists like Picasso and Braque, when suddenly the abstract movement was happening, and from figurative art, sometimes, you know, some artists rather started, you know, think of Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, which is what, 1905, 1907, someone correct me, around about 1905 or 1907, when suddenly, you know, the art world was absolutely like in shock when they saw this painting, Demoiselles d'Avignon. If you don't know it, Google it, check it out. It's a very, very important painting in the history of 20th century art. And he reduced these women to a series of very simple shapes. Picasso was very famous for saying it took him a whole lifetime to be able to draw like a child. And this is kind of what we're doing here. It's like abstract pattern making, because like I say, Jersey hates to be tailored. It hates lots of seams. It's unnecessary. If you approach a fabric like Jersey, and I have different strips, so I have rib knits here, I have very, very sheer, because I want to compare, because I want to emphasize that when we're working, and right now I don't have any, when we start working, this is all about not having a design to work to. We're designing as Vionnet did. We're taking an idea of shapes, and we are taking, it's totally a fabric and form refresher, yeah. We're taking the idea of geometry and applying it to the body, and we're analyzing what we see. This is how Vionnet designed. This is how Balenciaga, the original Cristobal Balenciaga, the other great of the 20th century. This is how they designed. They literally observed what they saw. So this is pure design. You create something, you have an idea, you execute it in fabric. You take it to the mannequin, you observe what you see, and you react to it. You analyze it, and then you react to it. And that's pure design. Vionnet didn't create sketches. The sketching came after. Vionnet would work every day creating, she had like hundreds of these half scale and all the full scale. Mainly she worked her design ideas out in half scale. Half scale mannequins are great to work on for ideas because you're not wasting loads of fabric, which today is a huge, you know, a huge concern that we all need to think about, you know, not wasting fabric. And she would literally leave to work all night. And then when the seamstresses and the pattern makers came in the morning, they'd find all these mannequins with the fabric pinned all over them with her designs. And she designed literally by, and I always say you have to listen to the fabric. You have to allow, the fabric will tell you when you start working with it, and sometimes don't overwork it. Sometimes you can overwork the fabric and it looks forced. I always say you have to listen and observe. The fabric will tell you by how it's hanging what it can do and what it can't do, what is awkward and what feels natural. Think about it, again, another analogy. I always say it's like sketching. When you sketch, half scale work rocks. Like I've been doing so many half scale things right now. My Instagram now is becoming just half scale almost. But think about it in terms of like when you draw. I'm not a drawer, so I don't draw. For me, drawing is on the mannequin with fabric. You don't start with details, yeah? You start loosely. You get a very general feel for your silhouette, for your volume, you know, and then you work into the details, yeah? Or a painting, you know, you have to start with the details of a painting. It becomes more detailed as you build up the layers. But to begin with, it should be loose and free. And that's how I always say with draping. That's why I think this is going to be a very, very good exercise for you all. And I think it's also a very good like sorbet course if you've been doing lots of pattern making classes. And exactly, the fabric speaks to you. You've just got to have your ears open. And this is why I wanted to do this, because it's the very antithesis of your metric pattern cutting classes, if you're taking those, or your tailoring classes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen, if I may. And I've got some images up here. Okay, so here's our starting point, right? This is the famous squiggle shirt. I've got a couple behind me. And you can maybe see in the little screen I'm in at the top, that's I've got a couple from my days there. And it's really basic. The key that we're going to be starting out with today is, first of all, the concept, like I said about Picasso drawing like a child. The first step with jersey, or our method of working that we're going to be dealing with today, is reducing a garment to its most basic principle. Okay, so let's get rid of the squiggle top. Like I say, squiggle top is kind of an iconic top. You'll see it in like music videos for like Susie and the Banshees and Bow Wow Wow and like Boy George from the early 80s. Most of you probably weren't even born there. Don't even go there with me. So it's kind of an iconic top. It was actually in the exhibition, even though it's just a long sleeve tee. But we're going to look at why it's not just a long sleeve tee and why it's so important. So basic principles, and I promise we're going to get onto the mannequins in a minute and have a look at some real fabric, but we do need to understand exactly what we're looking at here. So if we're looking at this first one, take the very basic idea, and we're going to be looking at really basic forms, okay? A basic t-shirt, we know what a basic t-shirt looks like, but think how a child would draw it. Remember when you were a kid and you used to draw mom and the dress was a triangle, and like, you know, it's that kind of, really, I mean, some of the shapes I'm going to be showing you later, you're going to be going, oh, hell no. Like, what, you got your 5-year-old nephew or something to do that? Like, no, that is not, but you'll be surprised, just wait. Okay, so this is basic t-shirt. Think about how a child would draw it, reduce that form, yeah? Basic tee, like that. Even, we can reduce it even further if we look at the second one like that. Take the sleeves out, make it a tank. I mean, that's a dress. If you actually chop it off right there, which is kind of what I've got on the mannequin behind me, it's basically a rectangle with 2 holes in it, yeah? And we need to have a hole for the head, okay? Again, so this is what this is showing here, the dress. It's, you know, a basic bodice kind of dress with a bust dart and maybe a skirt section put onto it, fine. Reduced, that can be reduced to a basic rectangle, okay, with holes in it. And it's these holes that we're going to be really looking at. The holes are the most important thing. You'll understand why in a minute. We can start thinking about, okay, what is drape? And that's something else we need to kind of talk about. A lot of people think in terms of drape as being like this fluid, relaxed thing. Actually, drape is the opposite of that. Drape is tension. Drape is the fabric fighting against its natural state of being flat. Fabric in its most relaxed state is completely flat. And when we create drape, what we're actually doing is creating a kind of tension. And we're upping the volume on that tension with these ideas by making patterns or making shapes that are so wrong. They're so wrong. They're so the very antithesis of tailoring, where the measurements are perfect, where the armhole is and where the neckline is, and you know, everything is perfectly fitted to a body. We're going so far the other way, and we can do this because it's jersey, and jersey has that stretch factor in it. That we're shifting necklines, we're shifting armholes, we're shifting where the body is in relationship to where it should be. You know, if the arms are here on this t-shirt, then the body should be going down. But if we shift that body off to the side, then the garment is basically fighting against the body. And this is what we're doing today, is we're looking at garments that fight against the body. And we are, let's bring ourselves back into the studio. So if we look at this first one, I'm going to have to be moving around. We're a little cramped up, and I do have a dress later, so I'm going to have to move us all back, and it should be fun, if nothing else. This first one that we're looking at, let's see from different angles. So I've highlighted here, this is not a design thing. This would be, if I was holding this up, okay, like so, it would be a perfect rectangle, okay? Your neckline, like in the t-shirt I'm wearing right now, okay? The neckline should be like in the right place. The t-shirt I'm wearing, it has no drape to it. It's not fighting against my body. It's just sitting on my body. So the neckline is in the right place in relationship to the armhole. What this is here is a rectangle of fabric with 2 holes for arms. And then what we've done is we've cut that neck hole. Instead of the neckline being here, the neckline is here, yeah, or here. I think this one I did, I was actually symmetric. So I've just taken it off like that. When you then put the body in it, all of this, you see what's happening here? What's happening is, because the relationship of where the neck should be in relationship to the arms, the fabric is fighting against the body. Because what happens is, if your neckline's here, it pulls everything back, yeah? So what we get is this excess drape in the back. This is the most basic principle. I'm not saying it's like changing the world of fashion. It's not what we're trying to do here. What we're doing is we're just looking at geometric shapes, and we're thinking about the relationship of how we can subvert the relationship of correct, like, body positions, and how we can use that to our advantage. Yeah. So if we look at her from the front, she's a little flatter in the front, because what happens is, you can kind of see from the side here. This is Dolores, by the way. I bought her from school. If you were in class with me, you'll remember Dolores. She's been with me for a long time. The reason, by the way, that I'm not using a mannequin right now, yeah, you remember Dolores, right? She's a little more battered than she was, you know, probably when you were with me, but so am I. So that's life. Yeah, what I've done here is I've highlighted this theme, not for design, so you can see where this would be if it was just sitting completely flat. It would be up here. But because the neck is forward, the whole thing is pushing like this. It's lifting, and it's fighting against the body. This drape that we have going on here, you can see it coming from the bust and coming round into the back, this excess fabric we have here. That's step one in what we're going to be doing. It's the generic, basic form, basic idea of where we're going from here. And we're going to take it much further. So let's turn her around. You can see gradually, you see a little bit more and a little bit more how, yeah, it's the neckline. This is one of the very interesting things in geometric cutting. And again, I'm kind of making a sweeping statement here, but in tailoring, when you do alterations and you make the alterations on the seams, the alteration happens on the seam. So the alterations happen right there on the seam where you've just done the alteration. In geometric cutting, and you know, the shape happens where you make the shape on the seam. In geometric cutting, quite often a seam will be controlling or creating a whole amount of drape and a whole amount of twist, but nothing itself is necessarily happening on the seam. Like, for example, if you take a flat piece of fabric and you fold it along a straight line of jersey, of a fluid or jersey fabric, it won't work with a stiff fabric or a heavier woven, but especially with jersey or like a crepe or, you know, something with a little body and something with a little fluidity. And you fold that straight line, which is 180 degrees, fold it, sew it, then open it up and take it to the body. What you'll see is like a cowl drape happening here. You won't see anything happening on the seam. The seam is controlling just in the same way. Nothing is pleated, nothing is, you know, this is all the drape here, all the tension, because remember, drape it's fabric fighting against the body. It's fighting to be flat, yeah, and we're not allowing it to be flat. It's all being done by this armhole. this neckline. Yeah, the neckline is forcing the fabric into a new position on the body, and it's that new position that we're really interested in and we want to control. So it's not a random thing. It may be when you start out, but obviously when you work with it, then you look at control. Is that too much? Is it not enough? Shall I make it more severe? Obviously, the more you take it down the body, the more severe it comes. And it'll get to a point where it's too much. You can see, you know, she's going up in the arms a bit here now, you know. In terms of developing this, I'd want to probably open the seam up a little bit. You know, I left her a decent sized armhole, I guess. It's not super generous, you know, but I could give her a little bit more there. If I cut into here, the drape would get less and less. So if I cut down the center back right now, the fabric would allow, it's like I'm allowing it to sit where it wants to sit. So it would get less and less. This would drop here and this would raise here, and it would get flatter and flatter. So by that logic, the opposite would happen if I dropped it even further forward. Then obviously it would be more severe and it would pull up the body even more. Yeah. And like I say, there's no need. So when you're doing this, I don't know if anybody is planning on doing this while we're talking, or you know, you can work alongside with these ideas and be cutting shapes out as we go along, or whether you want to do it afterwards. It's totally cool. But this can be drawn directly on the fabric. This doesn't need patterns. It doesn't need drafting. Pattern makers are going to freak with me right now because and it's not that I'm saying no patterns are needed ever. Just for this, you know, you need to do patterns for things. That's essential. But for this, what I'm very aware of, like I said, is that, you know, we're all working with patterns and exacting measurements and fittings and seams. This, I think, frees us up a little bit because I think a lot of people are afraid of getting something wrong, and they have to do, you know, things precisely, and you know, it's just, kittens don't die if you do something ugly on the mannequin. It's fine, but you have to. Draping and working with fabric is like learning a new language. Okay, the more you do it, the better you get. You can't learn it in a book. You can maybe understand what I'm saying and get the concept that I'm talking about, and you'll totally understand it. But until you actually physically start doing it yourself with your scissors, with your pins, and get in there and do it, you know, it's like you've got to do it to really see, because then you understand the parameters of what works and what doesn't work. So this is very much like an instant. You can be making yourself so many clothes. Like if you have jersey, if you have old T-shirts, you can cut them up, stitch them together. You know, and like I say, I think this is a very freeing way to work after a hard day of working on tailored jackets and, you know, drafting lining patterns and adding ease into sleeves and doing all of that. You know, because you can just draw shapes on the jersey. Not blindly, we're still thinking about the body and where the body goes, so we're still analyzing, you know, the distortion that we're creating. But let's turn around to the front. Again, she's a little plainer in the front, because what happens is she goes up back like that, so really most of the interest is in the back. And then, so I've cut out pieces because obviously we'd be here till midnight if I had to sew things, so I've prepped a lot of shapes in advance. You know, but just the idea of, like, think of a sleeve, you know, this is why jersey is so great, because it's so forgiving. Jersey wants to be simplified. It wants to be a really simple geometric shape, and it loves fighting against the body. It's not that you can't work with wovens in this method. It's just less forgiving, and you have to be aware that there isn't as much flexibility with woven fabrics when you're working like this, but you can totally do this with woven fabrics. Like I say, you just have to leave a little more room. So like I simply took a measurement of the armhole that I took, and like I say, no patterns I did for any of these. And I cut, this is our sleeve. She's a spiral, kind of, right? Just shaped like that, because we know, obviously, the arm isn't shaped like that. Let's put her on me. I think I can just get my arm in there. Again, it's the drape that we're going to get on here is the fabric fighting against the arm, because it's the wrong shape for the arm. The arm is not curved like that. But it's going to look way better on Dolores than on me, for sure. So you see what's happening here is the fabric. This is the fight of the fabric. Even though it looks relaxed, it's the fabric fighting. So none of that is gathered. You can see this is the inside seam that's curved. And the only measurements I took, and like I say, you can draw this directly onto your fabric. All you need to know is what's my arm length, yeah, from the underarm to the cuff, and what's my armhole size, yeah? What size armhole did I leave here, yeah? And so look, we got a kind of cool drapey sleeve. Like I say, it's going to look way better on Dolores than on me. And like I say, with no pattern making at all, this is just drawn. You can still see some of the old Sharpie marks that if I did a Sharpie point that I didn't like. And she can literally just be added on. I think sometimes, we can overthink, overthink working, and somehow think that if something's, I see this a lot, excuse me, that if something is really simple or simply achieved quickly, that it's not worth anything. That only good design, simplicity and good design, complex ideas and good design, not the same thing. Just because something is complex, it doesn't mean it's good design. In the same way that something can be incredibly simple with very little work and be something beautiful. Think about a quick sketch you do where you don't think about it so much and your lines are so fluid because you're not stiff, you've not overworked it, you've not overthought it. It's the same with draping, and especially with jersey. So look, we can then take our sleeve and pin her and get her turn around. I mean, if we had the time when we were in a 6-hour class, I'd now sew her in so we can see her really. Like, we can literally build. You can make this in like less than an hour for yourself. I don't think I said before, the reason I use Dolores, you'll get used to this, I digress a lot, is because rather than a fabric, rather than a basic tailored dummy, is the fact that our skin is smooth. Yeah, our skin is not fabric. Dolores here is very smooth, smoother than me even. A mannequin is fabric. And if you're doing something that requires drape and twist and jersey kind of stretching round, it kind of sticks to it. You don't get as realistic a garment and drape on the mannequin. So I love to always have, I do still work on the mannequin with jersey, but I love to have Dolores handy, or yourself. You can do this for yourself. If you've got a mirror and you can work, you can put your arms in thing, you can put yourself in a t-shirt and, or get a friend to pin or pin yourself. Anyway. But yeah, this is why I'm using Dolores and not a mannequin, because the drape is more natural on Dolores than it would be on a mannequin. On a mannequin, the fabric of the mannequin and the jersey fabric kind of fight, and so it doesn't hang very nicely, especially when it's fighting. When it's fighting, we need a more slippery surface. So I'm going to pin this just really roughly, so you get a sense, like instantly. Like I say, it's just two simple measurements, and we've instantly thrown on like a sleeve onto there. I'm going to take this black line off the back. That was just, like I say, not a design thing. It was so you can see where the seam went to. This is great, by the way. If you guys don't use this, this is seam tape. It's fantastic. It means you can draw on your toiles, but it not be a line, and then you can move it and you can see. You can get your lines and your seam placements really cool, rather than having like 12,000 drawn lines all over your toile, which is not pretty. So this stuff is really great. I get this. I know you're going to say, where'd you get it from? I get it from Tokyo, from the Bunker store, but I'm sure there are many other places you can get it from. Anyway, we can look that up. So you can see how quickly we can just throw on a sleeve onto that. And it's kind of, you see how it's kind of speaking the same language? Because again, this is fighting against the arm. This drape, this curved sleeve, because your arm isn't shaped like that. It's fighting against the arm. Even though it looks very relaxed, this drape here is a fight, yeah, that the fabric is having with the arm. And it only looks like that when the arm's in it. So you see, it's very much about the body. You need those, you know, you need the arms in there and the neck in there, and for this to work. Things look very different. You probably saw with the picture that went with the marketing for this, there was a picture of the same T-shirt on a mannequin and hanging on a hanger. And these, I love that. I think they have great hanger appeal when you see these pieces on the hangers as well. They kind of look really like very cool shapes. But yeah, when the body's in it, it's the body that makes them come alive. Okay. One other thing that I always say, and it's always a really good thing to have handy, I always used to have, again, people who've taken classes with me know, like offcuts of collars and button stands. The reason I do this is when you're, obviously you're going to draft this if you're going to do it for the real garment. But when you are quickly sketching fabric, like this is a really quick process. We want to get right in there initially, you know, and get a feel for the look before we start making patterns for collars and everything. This is that very first initial process. Is that you can, if you have a bag of these at different scales and sizes, like I always used to, and we just throw them on the toile, and you can instantly get a sense of a garment that becomes, you know, something a little more. Let's bring it a little further forward. No, Dolores does move. You can see that. So obviously the light in here is going to change as we go on, as we get darker and darker outside. So I apologize if you don't have the best sight of this. But, you know, even for real garment you want to make, like I say, if you don't want to have to draft button stands and collars, if you have old thrift store shirts, now what I could totally do here is take this and I could pin it all the way down and then cut this excess fabric, just leaving enough seam allowance back here. And then this now turns into like an open shirt. I'm going to share with you, because what I just did here, let's do a screen share again. So you can see like a flat version of that. Let's go in here. Where is she? We're going to be looking at a few other shapes as well. Sorry, my eyesight. Which one are you? Oh, where's she gone? Oh, there you are. Yeah. Okay. Is this? That's basically, it's something similar to what we've just created. Okay. Something similar, a lot looser. Obviously, different collar on here. This is a mandarin collar on here. And we've done a seam here. But similar, you can see the similarities in terms of the shaped sleeve here and the body here with the shifted neck. This is what we've done down here. And like I say, you can easily add your own collar stands. Let's stop that share. You can easily add your own button stand and collars onto these. And then by pinning these in here, and then you can cut this away here. So this would actually be, that's how it would sit there. If you want it, if I had it in that position and I pinned it like that, you could equally do, if you wanted it to be like the classic, then you would pin it in the closed position, yeah? You'd spend a little more time, which we don't have right now, but you would spend time getting the right pin there, getting the right position. See, I've left like ½ an inch either side of the stand, either side of the button stand, and all the way around the collar stand. That way, it gives me the seam allowance here to mark where this would go on here. Then I can cut this excess away here that I don't need on the inside, and you've got a shirt on that. So that's the very first kind of basic. Sorry, I'm going to come this side. That's the kind of basic starting point of what we're doing. Oh, she's heavy. Okay. So I'm going to take Dolores off. Like I say, feel free. If anybody wants to throw out any questions there, then Hector can, if you put them in the chat, Hector can totally do a shout out to me and I can answer any questions as we go along. You know, don't think you're interrupting. I want this to be very much you know, to work both ways. You know, I don't want it to feel like a lecture. So please, whatever you've got to ask, just shout it out, and Hector will pass it on to me, and hopefully I can answer some questions for you. So we're going to take her off. Has anybody worked in this way before? Is this new to everybody? Or does anybody kind of remember, has anybody worked like this before? If you're at our school, if you're at the academy, you'll only have probably done it with me, but I know a lot of you are maybe at different schools. So yeah, maybe some of you have already had a semblance of this before. Let's get rid of her.
We have quite a few yeses out there. We have some brand news. We have some, I've learned a little of this in class. I've seen so inspiring Tria out there. So a little bit of a mix of everything.
Cool. And it's so easy. This is what always freaks people out when they look at the shapes. We're going to start looking at some different shapes right now. And honestly, you're going to think I like got the 5-year-old to draw them, but I drew them. Maybe I'm a 5-year-old at heart. So I'm going to share again before I put the next one on, before you look at it, because what I want to get is, what I want to get is a sense of looking at things. It's all very well looking at things three-dimensionally and looking at the drape on the form, but the point of this for me is being able to translate the 2D to the 3D. And again, that's a muscle that you build up. I've been working this way for years. So I see the body in terms of less tailoring, because I'm not a tailor by nature. But I see the body more in terms of geometric shapes, geometric planes, and geometric forms and how they relate. So I'm used to seeing these very abstract looking shapes here. And actually, yeah, this is more, I would say this is less draping, I guess. You know, this is not so much draping. It's making lots of shapes, putting them on the mannequin. We are going to be doing some cutting in a minute. I'm going to be doing a bit of cutting on the next one. But what I want to show you first is the shape flat. So I'm going to share my screen again. So let's get rid of, we don't need those anymore. And let's look at this next piece. Come on, there you go. So again, ridiculous, right? Ridiculously childish shape. What we're looking at here, and this doesn't have its neck cut out at this point here. What we have here, this is the fold of the fabric, if you look at the top. And I've done a slightly curved shape. So I'm envisaging the neckline is going to be somewhere in here. This is one arm here. I haven't cut the other armhole yet. We're going to do that together in a minute. This would be then the seam that comes on the underarm and down into the body. Not necessarily a side seam, because once it goes onto the body, it's going to have a very different shape. This is our hem here, yeah? This is the exit where the body is going to exit. This is a seam here. You can just about see where the pins are in there. So we can go ahead now, and we're going to throw that onto the mannequin. Like I say, we've got work to do on that. I didn't want to just make lots of finished pieces. I wanted to, you know, physically cut things with you so we can see our options. So it's the same jersey, and put it on. Somebody's calling me. No, thank you. All right. You can see already there's quite a bit of fight going on. I'm going to move it back over here a little bit to give me a little bit of space. Okay, so I've got one sleeve already cut, as you saw from that shape. And I'm going to pop her in there. So this is a very, again, we're not reinventing fashion here. It's a very, very simple shape. I'm just going to push this back a little bit so you can maybe see a little bit more. There we go, of her. Okay. Maybe even pull this back a little bit. Okay, so we can see a little bit more of her. All right. So the shape of this, again, because it's the wrong shape for the body, I've not cut this armhole yet. So we have again, a lot of the drape is happening. You can see through here, it's being forced around. And we've got kind of a cool, let's turn her all the way around. kind of a cool drape happening in the back here. Fabric is being twisted this way around the body and being forced by the incorrect shape of the body to come around here and come around the body on this side. This is the seam that was the shortest seam, yeah? And this is the seam that had all the curve on it. Obviously, that shorter seam, the smaller seam, is going to be the one that fits to the body closer. And the bigger, rounder curve is the one where we're going to have all that excess here. Let's just move her a little more central. Okay, so let's pull it back. So again, you can see we have all this excess through here. I haven't cut my armhole here. Understand a little better. There we go. So, yeah, I haven't cut this form armhole here because I want it to look at, and again, we can take later, you can see how we can add these details in so easily, just to give us, like I say, at this point, it gives us a kind of detail. It doesn't always have to go straight down here. Why can it not be at an angle and actually have a button stand that maybe kind of comes under the arm like this or across the body? We can throw that in later. It's all options. But what I want to look at is in terms of where we put our armhole. The armhole naturally right now is sitting here, okay? But again, if we put this, if we take it in the wrong place, we could have the armhole down here. By putting the armhole down here, it would force the fabric into a different position, yeah? So it would force drape to happen elsewhere. So again, we're thinking about where are these exit places for the body. That would be a perfectly, we already have the fabric fighting against the body because of the curve here. And the body is now in forcing the fabric to kind of drape around the hip like this. But we could easily, again, depending on how much stretch you have and how much room you have, obviously it has its limitations. But we could shift the armhole down here to force all of this up here, yeah? If we wanted to, yeah? This will create a lot of excess fabric through here, yeah? Anywhere we put it, like I say, if we pulled it forward, it would push all of this back here like so, giving us, give me a workout today, giving us a lot of drape and stretch that would pull here, yeah? So it's really quite simple. We could even look at it backwards. I hadn't thought about that. Let's have a look before we decide. And this is what at this point we're looking at the fabric and we're looking at the shapes that we have in order to create designs from it. Yeah, it's rather than doing a sketch and saying, right, I want to make this design. We're designing in the way that Vionnet Balenciaga did. They're creating ideas in fabric, and they're observing it on the body. Let's have a look. And then creating designs from it. So you see, when I pull it around this way, now it's back to front. We get a lot more kind of severe things happening here. We get a lot of excess at the bottom. In development, I might want to take it a little bit. Maybe that gets a little lumpy there. But we need to see with the arm in. I have to move her over here. This is like the most workout I've had in years. Okay. Again, because of the arm in, it makes all the difference. Yeah. So what we're getting here now is much more. Push it a little further forward for you. It's much more severe across here. You see, we're getting a lot of drape through here. I quite like the idea of that. And I'm going to cut. I'm dying to cut. Drapers live to cut. Never keep me too far away from the scissors. And just for the hell of it, just for the fun of it, I'm going to put the armhole down here. Like I say, the armhole doesn't necessarily have to be here in the armhole position. You could have a garment where the sleeve kind of starts down here. And I've got it, we could maybe put one of those sleeves in it. So let's just make, and also with jersey, because it's not tailored, it's not woven, an armhole doesn't need to be a hole. An armhole can just be a cut. As long as the arm can go in it, Obviously, in development, we might want to start throwing gussets in and think about ideas like that. But for now, like I say, at this stage, see with the shoulder in it now we're getting even more severe fights because the shoulder is forcing that fabric across the body like that. I'm kind of liking it backwards like this, actually. This is a very sheer jersey, actually, so you're seeing the inside of it, so maybe not getting the best kind of best feel for what's happening on the drape. And then just because we can, let's take that same curved sleeve. We can take that on there and add that into it. Again, I'm not going to sew it in. I'm just going to quickly pin this into here. I've got the underarm seam. I'm going to kind of put on the sleeve. I'm going to put kind of on the side seam position here. And then you take your time getting the right kind of, probably want to take some of that out. It doesn't need to be such a severe shape in there. But I'm going to throw a pin into that. That's my point there that I've cut to. So right now, that becomes the front of the sleeve there. Let me turn that around so you can get a better view of that. Oh, come on, girl. There you go. I'm going to pin here. So if you can see, right, so we've got our armhole seam is happening down here, which is totally doable in jersey. You couldn't get away with that in a woven fabric. And again, then with development, you might want to kind of then think about the amount of volume you've got in here. Let's bring her back so we can see a little bit more of her.
Hey, Robert, we have a question from Heather out there. She said, would you at any point pleat jersey fabric?
You can do. For this, no. For this, we're looking at very clean geometric shapes, very simple seams. Trying not to, that's a whole, yes, I mean, if you can do it, if you can sew it, then you can do it, basically. For this, what we're looking at is very simple geometric shapes. Keeping the seams to a minimum, keeping it kind of minimal, childlike, simple shapes. I think with this, you've no need to, because you can see the fight of the fabric is what creates drape. The pleats, I think, then in this situation, kind of become decorative and unnecessary. I don't know if we need them in this situation.
Another question.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. There was another question too, just saying that since it's a smooth plastic surface you're working on, if you need to pin fabric in a certain spot, how can you secure it?
So with this, and this is why I wanted to do this, this is not, what we're not doing is kind of draping the fabric on the mannequin. Because we're looking at the geometric shapes, we're looking at then the cutouts, we're looking at placing holes for armholes and necklines. This is not where I would then start. I don't need to pin to the body because I want to see how it's naturally. She has an unusually large bosom, so that's why it would never fit on her. But to see the fight of the shoulder and the armholes and the fit and the drape, I'm not pinning. I don't have a need right now to pin anything directly onto the mannequin. Because I'm sewing the shapes to begin with, that's the different, we're not physically draping fabric here. The shape we're creating is the drawn shapes that we're doing prior to bringing it to the mannequin. And then we're bringing it to the mannequin and seeing how it reacts. And like I say, the reason I do this on the mannequin is because like skin, it allows the jersey to move over the body. Whereas on a tailor's dummy, it will fight with the fabric of the dummy and it won't sit properly like it would on skin. So that's why I like to use her for that. Does that make sense? I hope so. So yeah, that would be, so that's our kind of second piece, if you like. We're literally just going to go through a series of ideas And these ideas are just shapes. And it's like I always say to the guys in my class, they're a starting point, not necessarily like, this is how you do this, or this is how you do this. It's very much the concept of just think about the fabric fighting against the body. Think about where the armhole is and where the neckline is and how far you can subvert the relationship between those two positions. So when it goes on the body, it fights. And then do your own thing, you know? So I'm not saying this is the shape for how to do this. This is the shape for how to do that. That A shape, you know, there's certain shapes that we're looking at because we're looking at how the body fights against the fabric because the fabric is the wrong shape for the body part, or the armhole is in the wrong place. And so that fight is the design. The fight, the wrongness of the positions, yeah, the wrongness of the position of the neckline and the armhole and the direction of the body. When put on the body, if the body forces the fabric to fight against it, that's what we're looking at. Anti-fit, exactly, it's anti-fit, yeah? This is the section, if you do my draping class, that I call anti-fit and distortion. So those are those two first ones. We're going to go on to now. Let's have a look. We're going to go on to the next idea. We're going to come back to a bigger dress, a more extreme kind of shape. But for that, I need to pull these way back, and I don't want to do that till the end of the demo. So I'm going to share my screen now, and again, just do a little bit of talk on, because it's the same world, it's the same family, but just do a little history, if you don't mind, bear with me. I promise it won't be as long as the beginning. I'm going to share my screen again. And, okay, so we're coming out of that, and we're now going to be talking, bye-bye, there you go. Okay, we're now going to be talking. By the way, I know I look really super hot. Obviously, I've had to close my apartment is like a greenhouse, and I've closed all my windows so that we don't get outside noise here. So that's why now I'm kind of dying of heat. All right, so we are going to be looking at what we call the flying saucer, and I did not make that name up. Actually, what it's called. Come on, open up. There you go. All right, I'll make these bigger in a second. So, because it also fits into the same world, let's make her a little bigger. Very, very dated. You can probably tell the kind of date lines on these. 70s, late 70s, very early 80s. This is a guy called Holston, who you may or may not have heard of. I think he's a pretty well-known name. I think most people have heard of Holston. And this was he called it the flying saucer. And it's the very same principle that we've just been talking about in terms of, so this is very much in terms of dresses and skirts. And you can see this is the idea of basically two circles that are sewn together. You take the same circle and you sew together. Then, obviously, when in fabric, when you open those circles, they drop and you get this wonderful kind of barrel effect. But what's really interesting is if you displace, again, distortion, if we're distorting the relationship of the exit and entry parts of the garment, which in these cases is the waist and the hem, so if you shift this off center and also shift it in relation, so you see this is one side of the circle, this is the other side of the circle. When it goes on the body then, the seam of the two circles, you can see then becomes, he's done it very elegantly, and we're going to do it way more messily than that, and way more punk than that. He's doing it really quite, serenely here, where he's just shifting it off, but still through the diameter here, where he's got the hem here, and he's got the waist here. Quite elegant, very symmetric. This is what's giving us this lovely shape here. This one's a little more twisted, so he's got them at different axes here. He's got the waist opening here in this part of the circle, and on the under circle here, he's got this hem, but going in a different direction, which is giving us this opening here. And it's actually, it's the same theory. It's totally the same theory that we've just been talking about, looking at the relationship of a neckline to an armhole and subverting and destroying that relationship and making it wrong so the fabric fights. this is exactly the same thing. And it's interesting to see that many of the designers we're going to look at, I don't know if any of you, if I pull this up, anybody know? Oh, I was going to say, anybody know this designer, but the title's at the top. You can see, this is Junior Watanabe. So this is a collection from, I want to say 2008, 2009, and I want to say that because it's correct. A fall-winter collection. This is just 4 pieces from it. Basically, his entire collection is based off of the concept of flying saucer cut, which is opposing, so circles sewn together with opposing entry and exit points. Obviously, we're looking at a very generic version that we're going to be looking at now on the mannequin. Very generic version, a very simplified version. These are beautifully resolved and worked into pieces with closures and collars and button stands. But the basis of the theory is exactly the same. So this is Junior Watanabe. I also know Issey Miyake as well. If you look at Issey Miyake's stuff, especially in the pleat stuff, there's a lot of flying saucer kind of work going on in that too. Do I have any other flying saucer? Oh, there we go. So this is one of my, again, so we're looking at flying saucer, really simple basic dress. And what I wanted to show here is it doesn't have to be all or nothing, you know? This is what, so here we have the 2 circles. This is in a neoprene, so it's giving us kind of a spring. It's giving us kind of life and a bit of volume without anything having to be in there. And again, this is just 2 circles of exactly the same dimensions, the same diameter and circumference sewn together with 2 holes. 1 hole for here, which is giving us the empire seam happening up here, and a hole down here for the legs to come out of, which is the hem, okay? But then I've combined this with a very basic, and this again is not so much a design with the black. So basically this is black overlocking. The seams are on the outside. I do this merely for demonstration purposes in classes so that it's really highlighting the seams, you know, in terms of demo and in terms of teaching. So we can really see where the seams are, especially in this circle, yeah? So it's not so much a design choice here as a demo necessity as well, something that helps. So again, I've combined this. We're not doing any crazy flying saucer stuff here. Here, we've draped a very basic bodice with bust darts that we've put it to. So you see, it doesn't have to be an either or. It can, you know, this can very much be in conjunction with basic flat pattern making. All right, we're going to have a look now. So this is what we're going to look at on the, oh, she's small. Here we go. Let's make her bigger. So this is, and if anybody follows me on Instagram, they would have seen this. I posted last night. Not this. Well, it's the same 2 pieces, but draped differently. This is what we're going to be looking at here. What I want us to have a look at here, and again, it's a concern that we need to be aware of. This is exactly the same pattern, okay? These 2 circles are exactly the same dimensions. These 2 circles on the top are exactly the same dimensions. But you see the difference because of the quality of the fabric. This is a very heavy ribbed jersey. This is this very light sheer. I mean, you can see the mannequin through here, yeah? Very lightweight sheer jersey. But it's exactly the same pattern. And I wanted to demonstrate, you know, the difference there. Even when you do the same pattern, that it's important to really work with the fabric, yeah? So we're really looking at the fabric specifically that we're draping with and reacting to it for that, not trying to make it do something that it doesn't want to do. So I want to, Dolores is going to take a little union break. And we're going to put her out to the side, and I'm just going to, let's pull her back. So we're going to look a little bit at these flying saucers. Do you guys have a good view of that? Let's pull her up a bit. That's a little bit better. Okay. So this is our flying saucer. And again, I've not pinned anything right now, and I've not cut anything. But you can see with the heavier rib, we get kind of really nice, see if we bring her closer. We get kind of nice, interesting, like I say, right now, it depends how you put around on the mannequin, but it's already starting to give me a little bit of life here, starting to give me a little bit of interest sculpturally. And let's take off the top one to begin with. We are going to cut into her, maybe throw some arms in there. Let's just take her off for now. And actually, so you can see how ridiculously simple. Again, you know, people think that something has to be so and if something's so complicated, that means that it has merit. Simplicity, complexity have nothing to do with good design, good ideas. I mean, this, like I say, what we're doing right now is almost childlike. So that shape there, it's a little stretched out, but look, is like just simplest circle-ish, freehand drawn circle even. It doesn't even need to be a perfect circle. With a hole cut here and a hole cut here. So look, when it hangs, obviously the circles drop. When we're holding it like that, you know, it's not giving me life. It's almost kind of ugly. But of course, when we're looking at it on the body, like so, it's going to hang on a body like that. Look, we can drape our arm. It could be, I've got it on a half-scale mannequin right now, but totally, right? You could see this being a sleeve, right? I mean, it's not me. It's a little lady for me. I'm not averse to a little lady in how I dress, but think that's a little lady for me. But you can see how this could totally be developed into sleeve ideas. This is what we're always looking at. We're observing the form. We're looking at the shapes that it created and saying, oh, what could that be? How could I work with that? You know, how could I, you know, what silhouettes can I create with that? And just putting it on the mannequin, let's put it back on. Which way up for she? I think I made that one bigger. Yeah. Okay. And you can see just by rotating her, I'm going to pull her down a little lower. But that's, right now she's at about the right scale for being, if she was a human size, she'd be like 5'10", 5'11", nice tall body. Obviously, the taller the body, the more interesting, more dramatic proportions you can get. Let's come this side, maybe see a little better there. So even before I start pulling her up the body, you could see it's already starting to give me kind of joy for various proportions of it being a skirt section down here. We could totally then obviously pull it further up into the body, where then it starts to give us different silhouettes. And then again, you just at this point, like I say, we're sketching. We want to see really quick ideas that come to us. We're not overworking the fabric. I'm not pinning. I'm not moving it so much. I'm just letting the fabric tell me what it kind of likes. You know, if we start bringing it up here and start to put some pins in. So look, we can imagine now a shape kind of like this is starting to give me a little joy as well. So I'm kind of liking that. This is where the tape really comes in handy. So we can start mapping out. This is why I call it sketching, because we're starting to sketch where possible seams would be in the garment. Have a look where we're going here. You don't necessarily have to follow the lines you cut. It could be, yeah, we could start to cut that away. That could join up into there. You know, this section up here could be a woven section, yeah? We could then, you know, I'm not thinking, at this point, I'm not thinking too much. There's so many opportunities, you know, it could still be the same rib. It could be woven. There are certain things that couldn't be, like if you think in terms of weights of fabric, if I've got something heavy and chunky like this happening in the body section, I'm not going to think in terms of chiffon or georgette or organza, maybe, you know, to go in the top. You don't want the weight. If you think garments, unless it's a strapless gown, garments hang from the shoulder. We, clever as we are, we can't defy the laws of gravity and the laws of physics. So this the strength has to be here. If this is flimsy up here and you've got weight pulling down on it, you've got your balance wrong, yeah? Any garment, jacket, coat, dress, top, whatever. If it's not working on the shoulder, you're going to have problems. Always think about how is it working here? How is it sitting on the shoulders, you know, and how that works on the shoulder. So yeah, you don't want to start putting really lightweight fabrics in here, but you can start in the same way that you would start to think about drawing lines when you sketch. You could maybe think, okay, in terms of without wanting to get too overly complicated with seams, you know, it could be something along the lines of this. Again, I'm doing this super rough right now, like super rough. And let's cut. She's raising a little bit, now I've cut her, but that's fine for now. Again, this is super rough. But you start to get a sense of, okay, so where would the garment go from here? I'm thinking of adding lines that work with the drape that's happening here. What are my lines here? Where are my seams going to go here, right? It kind of makes sense that, right? To have these lines coming diagonally at this point, it kind of feels a little more organic, right? These diagonal lines to be happening. And like I say, at this point, you know, I would then spend time, I would maybe think about adding, well, not think about, I would add in the panels here to complete here. Maybe map out an armhole. Let's just see you. And again, I quite like the idea of maybe this having a woven top section, you know? That could totally work. Oh, let's give a...
Hey, question, Robert. Would this work?
Yeah.
Could this work for silk?
Yeah, totally. This is not really fighting so much against the body. This is a much more gentle fight. But it may be that something like that is your reaction. And again, so this is what I mean. At this point, it's a sketch. You know, I'm not presenting a finished, developed work here. Nothing that we're looking at today is about finished, developed work. That comes later, you know. This is a point of sketching. This is a point of just mapping out ideas, playing with shapes. I'm liking what's happening there. I think that's quite nice. I could definitely see that developing into quite a nice form. Right, she kind of works. I like the kind of balloonness there, but obviously there's a lot of development. This is not a finished piece. This is the start. This is the very start of what you're doing here. Okay. So that's one approach with that as well. Let's have a look at. Let's go back to full scale. Oh no, we can look at we've got the other half scale jersey. So while I'm undressing her, if anybody wants to throw any questions out, this is a good time while I'm redressing the half form. I love, if you don't have a half form, you know, and you're kind of serious about your draping and your fashion design, I highly recommend. They're not expensive and they're perfect for working out ideas. The only thing you have to remember with when you're working half scale, when you are doing metric cutting and tailoring and wovens and everything and jackets, perfect. You can just take that pattern and draft it up to full scale, and it's fine. When you're dealing with pieces like this that very much would drape and fluidity, what you have to remember in full scale, again, laws of physics, the weight of the full, you might not get the same silhouette because that fabric doubled up and with so much more volume will pull down. Yeah, the gravity will have a greater effect. Whereas on the half scale, you don't have so much fabric, so it will stand out more and create volume. But when you do it full scale, you might find that the whole thing kind of pulls down, and you have to rework it a little bit. That's the only caveat. If you're working in this style of doing large scale dresses or gowns, is thinking in terms of how the fabric will pull down more on the body. So we're going to look at the other very different flying saucer, which is the really lightweight.
A couple questions. Can I trouble you for the name of that book? Sorry, the chat just jumped on me when I was reading it.
Sorry, which book?
It was the book that had Halston images and pattern.
Oh no, I knew you were going to ask me that. I might have to get back to you on that. So those are, it was a book on Halston. Literally, I've had those images for 14 years. And I know somewhere we must have it. I'm going to have to get back to you though. I can't remember the name of the book. Sorry.
All right.
It's a really, really old book. It wasn't even new when I found it. I think it's like a super old book from the 80s. I'll have to do some research on finding that out. I can't imagine Halston. There are many books on Halston. I don't even know if it's still in print, to be honest.
Sorry. On where can you get, or where did you get the half scale form?
Look, if you Google, you can get them. So many companies do half scale forms. Wolf, PGM, all the generic, all the basic mannequin places. I got this again. I got this from Tokyo, from Bunker. But you can get them if you Google half scale mannequin. You'll see them all coming up, and you get the one. A lot of people don't believe that this is half scale. They think it's quarter. They refuse to believe me when I say it's half scale because it looks so tiny. But that's totally half scale. Yeah.
All right. So the question is, how much, if any, thought is put in before you start?
How much thinking do I do? I think about the concept of what I'm doing, you know. The thinking is happening when I'm this. So I work in many different languages, if you like, many different styles. Excuse me. This is just one style. With this, the thinking is super easy because it's so freehand with the drawing of shapes. While I'm doing this, we're going to look at a very similar dress. Sorry, I'm going to share my screen again because I want you to see how ridiculous, like it's almost laughable, how ridiculous the shapes are. So this is a dress. I love this dress. I did this a long time ago. This is, again, so all we're doing now is adding. There's no shape through any of these themes here. These are just joins of giving, so we have contrast colors, yeah? We got some color blocking going on here. But, I mean, for God's sake, look at the shape of this. It's like a cartoon of a ghost or something, yeah? You wouldn't think, looking at that brutal, childlike, cartoonish shape, here we're adding in gussets, obviously, because that, again, that's in the development of it. Generically, you know, you could just leave this open here when you first start, but knowing, because it's so sharp here, I know that I'm going to need a gusset there. Don't be afraid of gusset. People in my classes always seem to be quite afraid of gussets. I never understand that. A gusset is purely filling in negative space. Yeah. For me, I always look, no matter how long I do this for, it never ceases to amaze me that this brutal, ugly, simple, childlike shape on the body, and I've not done anything to this from this. This is not pinned out or, you know, altered seams or anything like that. This is that exact thing. Yeah, it's a front and a back, the same. So this is 2 layers of fabric here. Yeah, this whole thing, it's a front and a back, and they're cut exactly the same. You see how like lightweight on pattern making this is? Like pattern makers are going out of business right now for all working like this, because this is just drawn directly on the fabric. But this is totally this. Never ceases to kind of give me a giggle when you look at how childlike and simple this is. And then you look how, to me, how cool this is on the body, how it twists and fights around the body. Oh, the only thing I've added here, so the only difference added is I've pinned on a band on the hand. That's the only difference, yeah? That's the only difference there, is I pinned on a band on the hand. That's it. That's the only difference. Yeah, I always think that's so cool when I see the flat shape. Do I have another shape there that I was going to show you? No, just that one. Okay. So yeah, never ceases to make me giggle when I see these things laid out flat when you do the pattern or when you just draw it directly onto the fabric. Again, very different here. I mean, even before I kind of take it down, you'd even just see that very, very basically. Look, it's kind of cool already. I've not done anything to it. I've just thrown it on there. You see how easy it is to make yourself pieces. You just get a couple of circles and like make it big enough for your body to get into it and cut some holes in it. T-shirt done, like seconds. Anyway, that's the larger one. I'm gonna pull her down. And again, so I'm going to put that right now in exactly the same position, and you'll see how different she looks. I'm not going to make it the same. Oh, that's giving me a bit sarong, which I'm not liking. But that was exactly how we pinned. Let's just throw a pin in there.
Robert,
that was exactly, yeah.
You always photograph the flat shape before taking it to the form?
I have been, yeah, no, I always, I either make a diagram of it. Yeah, I photograph everything, especially now with digital. I used to Polaroid everything, showing my age there. But now with digital, you're not wasting film. It's so easy. You can, you know, I photograph like crazy, everything I photograph, because I don't draw. This is my drawing. So what I need to do is I need to record my drawing. So I photograph everything and then just delete the ones that I'm not liking so much. But you see the difference. I mean, this is exactly the same thing that we just saw. I mean, it's not screamingly different, but you see the hang of the fabric completely different. And it's giving me, so I'm not going to put that in the same way. I'm going to bring it down. And again, just by rotating it, because the exit holes are so different, if you just rotate it around and around, it's going to give you completely different, yeah? I always, when I do flying saucer, I always like literally do a rotation before committing to a location. You've seen, it always reminds me, you saw the movie, what's the movie? Oh my God, I've forgotten what it's called. Anyway, she says to her, like, with Alicia Silverstone, oh my God, the 90s movie. And she says to her, always do a circuit of the party before committing to a location. Clueless, thank you. Yeah, in Clueless, right? That's what draping's like with this. Never commit to a location until you've done a circuit, right, of the mannequin. Like always, you know, you want to take it around different parts of the body. You want to put it in different proportions. Let's throw on the baby circle. We got the tiny little circle as well. Look, she's like, I didn't even like measure. I literally freehanded these circles. I have to say, that's a pretty damn good freehand circle. Just pat my own back there. So let's put her on here. Because what I want to look at is giving her some arms. You might have noticed that she's been missing a vital component of what's needed. I'm just going to pin her. I like the idea of that. Pin her there for now. I'm liking it when it kind of gets pulled up in the middle like that, and it creates a kind of a leaner silhouette there. Hold you up. Remember, you know, right now I'm pinning this to the mannequin. I know you can't pin it to the body, and it obviously will need work on, like right now this is going to be a skirt. I would totally make this into an underneath dress part, so this will be like a two-layer thing, but that's in development. That comes like way later. At this point, we're not bothered about the specific. We're thinking about them. As we're working with the fabric, we're acknowledging what jobs need to happen later on. Sorry, standing in the way. We're acknowledging that those jobs need to come on later, but I'm not doing them now. It's too early in the process at this point to be thinking about specific, well, to be doing specific, not thinking about them. You need to think about them. but they will happen at a later point. And now I want to get my proportion, I want to get my position.
Some more things coming in, Robert. So could this kind of 3D sketching method be based on visuals? Person's having some difficulty finding the link, and I don't think this is a fluid and effective way of combining both. What's your opinion about this? Do you use any visuals to base your shapes on?
No, I'm just reacting to what I see directly on the mannequin. And again, this is one way of working. So this is not my life. What we're doing here is not this is everything I do. Again, think of it as a language, as a pattern maker, draper, designer, 3D designer, whatever you want to call it. You want to become as fluent in as many different languages as possible. Okay, this is one language. You know, I speak many other languages. Like I say, if you look on my Instagram, you will see jackets and coats and gowns and pleated things. And this is just like, you know, we had to pick a theme for the. You know, I can't do 10 languages in 1 2-hour workshop. So this is very much exactly, yeah, it's a tool. And, you know, what we're doing is we're adding to our arsenal, you know, we're adding to our tool belt. It's more tool. The more tools you have, or we're adding to our vocabulary. Look at it like that. You know, the more fluent we are, the more precise and eloquent vocabulary we have, the more we can communicate our ideas in a better way. This is what this is. This is one idea. This is not the idea. This is one idea working with Jersey. It can be applied with other concepts in conjunction with. It's not instead of. It's one method of work, you know. It's just one idea of creating very simple sculptural forms, yeah? She's looking a bit Grecian there, looking a bit kind of Vionnet 20s. But what I want to look into doing now is cutting an arm in here. So I'm kind of edgy to try and open this up and put an arm in. So we have, oh my God, it's so cute. 2 little half-size arms. Thank you, Yuko.
Hey, Robert, when you're doing draping, is there any rule of thumb when it comes to which direction the drape will go in, how the volume will shape out when drafting 2D? Is there any rule of thumb, or is it just more of a see how it flows?
That's a huge question. Difficult to answer. Working in this way is very different. You know, say if I'm doing a bias cut gown that has many seams in it, all clean, no pleating. The drape is a more fluid, there's volume in it. That's much more mathematical, you know, approach. Again, right now, this, like I say, this is an approach. This is one approach. This is like one language, like one little tool in the tool belt that we're using right now. Yeah, you need to think in terms of, first of all, the fabric you're using, the type of design you're aiming for. Right now, you know, we're not doing like structured gowns, you know, we're not in that world. So we're not thinking in that way. We're thinking very easy, simple, looking at, you know, messing about with the shapes of armholes and necklines. One tiny little world, you know. So when I'm saying all of this, everything that I'm saying is applying to this idea that we're working with today of shifting necklines and seeing the jersey fight against the body. It's not a universal truth for draping and pattern making. I don't think this way when I'm doing a different design or a different project, you know. You have to, like I say, you know, say this is French. I might be fluent in French, but then, you know, go to Austria and you need your German, you know. So I don't apply this method of thinking to everything that I do. I get my head in a space that the fabric and the project at the time and the ideas at the time of playing with necklines and having the jersey fighting, that's where I put my head. My head's in that space right now because that's where we are. What I'm saying right now is all applicable to this idea. Does that make sense? I know maybe I didn't answer the question right there, but I'm trying to explain. So what I'm saying is that I'm not trying to speak universal truths of how you should be at all times of draping, no matter what you're draping. My head will go to a completely different mindset when I have to do a gown that's, say, fingertip pleated, like an old Madame Grey style, or when I'm doing a bias cut gown, or whether I'm doing like a huge Westwood style from the 90s when we did enormous ball gowns, you know, with crinolines underneath, or with, you know, you have to go to a different place. You have to think, you know, doesn't matter how fluent you are in French, you need your German in Austria, or, you know, you go to Russia, you need your Russian. You think differently in a different language. That's the kind of the best way that I can answer that. You know, the idea then, I guess, is to be as fluent in as many languages as possible. Yeah. Then you can adapt and you can work in a way, because what you want to do is you don't want to enforce and say, I have a way of working and I'm going to work this way on XYZ projects. Like, no, like I can work in this way, and this way. Depending on the project requires that I think in this kind of way. You know, when I'm doing like, you know, ridiculously, you know, huge gowns with inbuilt corsets and 20, 30, 40, 50 meters of fabric and all this hugeness, my brain is not necessarily thinking like, oh, but will she be comfortable in it? And like, will she be able to throw a javelin in it? Like, no, those are the concerns of if I'm working in sportswear and, you know, if I'm working on a project that's lycra and that she needs to move around, you know, that's the brief, you know? So your head has to be in the space that the project demands, you know? Comfort, not so much a thing, you know? When you want to be trussed up and you're going to a glamorous event, you've got a corset in, you're like, I don't care if I can breathe, I don't need to sit down, I just want that waist to look like 5 inches smaller. You know, comfort goes out the window because you want to look, you don't apply those same sensibilities. That same person won't have the same sensibility and need from her outfit, like I say, when she's throwing the javelin in a sports auditorium. Okay, so look, we've got again here a little spiral arm that we had. She's so cute. That we can add like into here. Did I pick up a left? So I picked up a left arm there. So we're going to add her into the left. And I also did, this one is a lot smaller because I wanted to see which will be better. Do we want the slightly bigger sleeve or the slightly smaller sleeve? This one will be a little more cozy on her. Do I can't read all of that, Fred. Do I have a preferred method of, Hector? Can you help me out with that one from Fred?
Yeah, absolutely. It says, do you have a preferred method or tutorial for creating arms for half scale or forms? To actually create them? I mean, there's obviously, this was a pattern. This was gifted from a colleague of mine, from a teacher who teaches in my department, Yuko. And yeah, she made this pattern for the arm. It's a very basic pattern, and obviously we have the full scale too, so it's like a half scale. It's a fairly simple look. I can show you. Very simple. Obviously the arm naturally swings slightly forward, so we don't have like a straight arm like that. The arm, when it's relaxed, swings forward like that. So also we want our dummy arms, got a little hanging thing on it there. So you see, we want our dummy arms, and we achieve this by having a little dart here, yeah, a little dart here, and that gives us a nice swing forward, yeah, and that just pins on. Got a hook there if we want to hang it on the. That's where I generally keep the arms when I'm not using them. I put them both just around the neck like that. So she has a little shoulder pad on the top there, so we can pin her to the mannequin. What I'm going to do first, though, is put the sleeve onto this one. And then just one more dress after this, the really stupid, crazy, ridiculously shaped dress that I warned you was coming. How we do? Oh, I know. Sorry, I'm maybe a little further behind. I'm going to hurry up. So look, let's
let's open this up. What I'm thinking here is I already have a seam coming here. Rather than creating another armhole, I'm going to open up this seam and allow this. This will drop and open to create an armhole here for a sleeve to go in. So let's just open this seam up. And you'll see the shape will now change on the body because this will fall. So I've hand sewn all of these. So you want to make sure. So, oh, a little tip. So when you're doing these, I'm guessing you'll be probably sewing them on the sewing machine. Always put, whenever I'm making these, I put the machine stitch up really big because you're going to be wanting to open up seams and you know, unpick things. And if you've got that stitch length on like tiny little seam, you're there for ages trying to unpick it. So always remember when you're doing toiles, when you're doing samples like this and just experimenting, whop that stitch length like way up. So, makes it much easier to work with. So, she's the right, she's the big one is going on the left. I'm just going to pull it down to my height so I can get in that and just pop that arm onto the mannequin. And obviously, I would now spend a lot more time matching and fitting. I would probably cut this out a little bit more to get a perfect kind of underarm shape. For now, I just want to give you an idea. Obviously, the development and the work and the precise pinning will happen after this point, but I just want to, so that we get a quick, instant vibe of what's happening here. I'm just going to very roughly pin that in place. I'm not going to put any more pins in it than that, just enough to hold it, give it a sense. Like I say, remember, these are all sketches. This is nothing refined or resolved at this point. It's very quick initial placement and drape. Get a sense of silhouette and a sense of the rough design.
Hey, Robert, while you're pinning, we have GV out there said, I want to take a moment to say, I'm so thankful that you're generously sharing your expertise, knowledge, and skill with us all, Rob. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. It's very kind.
And then someone said, correct me if I'm wrong, but this feels like a good way to get puffy sleeves.
To get right? No, totally. Yeah, circles are really good for volume, especially on sleeves, right? Again, because it's fighting, because your sleeve shape is circular or spiral. When the arm goes in it, what you get is all this excess of the fabric. Okay, so we've got quite a cute kind of sleeve. Yeah, I'm very much, this session is not about form fitting, you know, it's about coming away from the body. If all things are looking, yeah, I'm doing lots of spiral sleeves and stuff. It's not that I'm a one-trick pony, it's that this is just a quick 2-hour workshop on one specific idea. So yeah, a lot of things are looking fairly similar. But you can see how very, very simply, and I've opened it up there. Yeah, you can see the seam better there. So I'm following the original seam. That's the original seam that when I've opened it, can you hear? Now, yeah, so the bottom of the seam becomes the underarm. If I was working at home, I'd make a much more effort about pinning all of that and creating the underarm seam there. But you can see now how this is how Vionnet designed. You know, can you imagine how wonderful it must have been as a pattern maker working there, and you come into work and you find one of these on your desk every morning. It's like the Pixies have been working at night, and they've got all these designs for you, little presents in the morning. Okay, so yeah, that is the flying saucer. Again, do you see how different it was giving us from this kind of monster? So what I want to do finally is just, we're gonna pull her back, and I'm gonna pull this table back because I think we need a little more room for Dolores. Just to go back again to a really ridiculous shape. Let me share screen for the last time. All right, so I did this one last night, and I just thought, how stupid can we go, right? So we've gone really, I mean, it's almost like, this one kind of, not that I'm remotely even comparing myself, but in terms of the shape, it kind of reminded me of a Matisse, you know, his paper cutouts when he was much older and couldn't paint. So he began doing all of these collages. It kind of reminds me of that kind of shape. I don't know why, of like one of his dancing women. But this is what we're going to look at now, like really ridiculous shape. The only thing that's missing here was an armhole that was cut, a neckline rather, that's cut out here. What I did, I've done a huge, it's almost like a dolman sleeve here with this very curved, long underseam, and it has loads of width. No need for a gusset here. Here is different. Here I've got this point. So here, naturally, I'm leaving, you know, a few inches. I've not sewn here, and I've not sewn here. Because I'm anticipating here that that would be where I would want to put a gusset in. On the underarm. Oh, no, there we go. Stop sharing. So let's have a look at that one. And like I say, she's a longer dress, so I'm going to need to get a little more space between you and Dolores for you to see it. Yeah, I just love how ridiculous they look when they're flat. I mean, it's just so ridiculously childlike. This is what I say. This I always find is good. Like I said, it's one way of working. It's not how I work all the time. But if you've been doing like hardcore tailoring and pattern making, you've been drafting linings for coats, you've been doing collars and plackets and pockets, this is a really good like antidote. This will really take you out of that zone at the end of a day of doing that and put you in a whole happy place. Ooh, she's a little tight. She'll go on. All right, so I'm gonna have to pull her back a little bit. Let's bring her way back. How much of her can you see? Oh, you're still not even seeing. Oh, the joys of live TV. But I can move you back and move you. There she goes. You can see a little bit more of her now. And I'll turn her around because she's really kind of cool at the back as well. But you see, I remember somebody was asking before about pleats or whatever. You would have no need of pleats in this dress. There's so much drape and twist going on. The pleats are kind of redundant. And then I'm going to have to put her on there. There we go. Give her an arm back. But I love the silhouette we're getting on that. What we're getting here. Oh, we got to give her another arm. I'll turn around as well. What I love about this way of working as well is that it is so three-dimensional. When you're always adding side seams to everything, you're cutting the body in half, and quite often what you end up with is a front and a back. Whereas when you're working like this, you're very much aware of the fact that these things have a joy from kind of every angle. So we see, there's no pleats or anything on here, but we've got this major, major drape going on. I'm loving what's happening in the back as well. This really nice kind of asymmetric, let's push her back. Ugh. What's going on here? So we have this really kind of tight, we have a lot of fit there on the waist, but then we have this super nice, almost cowl effect on the back with this nice skinny sleeve through here, and then this really beautiful drape through here. Like I say, it never ceases to kind of amaze me when you look at how ridiculous, go back a little bit more, that flat pattern was, you know, that we started out with. Just a little bit more. You can't quite, you can just about see, there we go. You're getting that kind of So yeah, and onto that, like I say, from this now as a design, I would then start refining, and then, you know, you then start working into it and work out all the specifics of how to actually make it work as a design. Like I say, at this point, she's just a simple sketch, yeah? Very unrefined, very, very, you know, just a basic form into which now we will work, you know? I'm going to fill in. Here we've got the gaps that I'm blessed for a gusset in there. She doesn't really need it, but it would add a nice three-dimensional kind of feeling into that. And then that was the last piece that I wanted to show you guys. And I think, yeah, we're up to 5 to 9 already. Thank you. I'm trying to read the question on there. I don't have my glasses. Oh, hang on, I can put my glasses on now.
It said,
oh, bless you, Annette.
The name of the painting in the early 1900s.
The painting that I referred to was Picasso's Demoiselle d'Avignon. So it's a very, very iconic painting, a very important painting in the story of fine art. And I want to say 1905 or 1907. Somebody will correct me on that. But I think it's one of the two. That sounds about right. I think 1905, 1907. But yeah, Demoiselle d'Avignon. I think it's in, if I remember rightly, it's either in Chicago or New York. But it's in every book. You'll find it in every Picasso book. Thank you too, Shirley, for coming. I see better without. 1907, thank you. I knew it was 05 or 07. Thank you so much. So yeah, I hope, like I say, this workshop for me, I knew I had to just pinpoint an idea. I couldn't in 2 hours cover a multiple array of ideas. Like I say, draping, cutting patterns is multiple languages. You know, I knew I had to focus on one language. So I'm sorry if maybe you had questions or you were hoping to see certain things, but I knew I really wanted to focus really on this idea. I wanted to focus on something that you could now leave here, get a pair of scissors, get some fabric, go and cut some shapes and put them on your body or on the mannequin and just kind of have fun with it. Because I think I see a lot of the fun lost. When people are studying something and they're so, you know, everything has to be right and they're drafting or whatever. And I think, you know, we all need a bit of fun with what we're doing and, you know, grab some scissors, grab some pins, grab some fabric, just cut some shapes and throw them on the mannequin, you know. You need to keep the love for what we do, you know, and if it's also studious, we can lose the love very easily. So go and be punk-ass and make some punk-ass pattern shapes and draping. Yay, don't be afraid, Bonnie. Thanks, Meredith.
It looks
Yes,
like
I
a lot of students that showed up to say hello tonight.
Sorry?
I said it looks like you had a lot of students to show up to say hello tonight.
Yeah, I saw we had a few alum there, so that was really nice to see. Well, and even though I didn't see you in person, it was nice to see that you were there. I hope you're all doing well. Oh, thank you. That's so kind. Go out there and have fun. Go drape.
That's good. Well, I'll take it back. I'll take it from here real quick, and then we can try to do some questions for you if need be here. So,
yeah.
One thing I just wanted to maybe throw out there to you to talk about for a quick second. I mean, we have one of the best fashion schools you can find anywhere you go. And I know that you work here at the Academy, so obviously you're going to be biased, but truthfully speaking, what do you think are some of the best advantages of our program that we have here at the Academy?
I think for me, and I've taught at many, many schools and still occasionally do visiting, like external examining or workshops in universities in Europe. And many universities and many places are very much, this is our theme, this is our style, this is our vibe, this is the kind of student we pull out. For me, and I know the department as general, we're not here to push an aesthetic on you. I'm not here to push my aesthetic on you. It's irrelevant. At the end of the day, what we can, I think what's the best thing that I can give somebody is the passion. It's like the sense of you can give somebody the tools to feed themselves is better. They can do it for themselves. And it's like, do whatever you want to do. Just do it well, it doesn't have to be this genre. It can be any genre. You want to do sportswear, fine, just do it really well. You want to do tailoring, do it really well. You want to do women's evening wear, fine, just do it really well. And I think that's what we have a very, very wide range of classes and a wide range of teachers with very, very different experiences. None of us are here to push our aesthetic, It's about you creating your own sensibility and your own style, and I think I see that more with us than I see at any other school, that it's really about the individual. That for me is the most important thing. It has to be.
Yeah. That's great. No, I appreciate that's a really good answer. And I would tell you, you definitely see it a lot in the shows and the collections that come out each year.
Yeah. Yeah, our seniors will be finishing their collections. I work with them Thursday and Friday. They have like a week and a half before they have to have their thesis, their final collection in.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're all sewing like crazy right now.
Right. Well, hey, folks. So, hey, just to kind of wrap it up here tonight, I mean, I'll hang back for a little while for some questions as well, so we can try to help out. Let me go ahead and put a couple of links out there. One of the first thing that I wanted to do, as I always do, is that if you're a potential student out there, if you've not enrolled in school, you're looking to take the first step, I would encourage everybody out there to either send me an email and connect with me so I can talk to you, whether you're an international student or domestic student. I run all of the admissions departments here for the university. Please don't be shy, even if it's just questions or you want to talk. I'd love to connect with you, but please send me an email and I'd be more than happy to just set up some time to go over things and help you to get started on what your first steps would be. If there's anybody out there that's looking to apply to the university, that conversation would be one of our first steps, so we can go over specifics of different programs, look at transfer units. If you're an international student, we're more than happy to help you to get set up to actually move out here if that's your situation, or even to be able to start with some courses online over the summer and then move out here in the fall time. I tell everybody this every week when I do these events. Right now, if you're sheltered in place and you're staying safe, it's probably one of the best times to take some courses, even from your living room. Believe it or not, a lot of our courses that are offered even on Zoom or online are very effective, and I think students can get a lot out of it. So we'd love to have every single one of you participating with courses with us in our program. But please send me an email. I will be hanging back tonight. I do this pretty much every Tuesday to take questions, connect with people, talk a little bit about the program, and just set you up with some of your first steps with good information. I'm going to go ahead and put the link in here really quickly of how to apply to the university. So there's a link right here to the application. Before we go here and I send Rob off, does anybody here have any last questions for Robert that we can talk a little bit about as well? A lot of current students out there. That's great. If you're a current student, thank you for showing up tonight. I'm sure you can back me up by saying how wonderful our program is to our other students out there. We had Melissa saying, thank you, Rob. Tria saying, you're amazing. I'm guessing that's for you, not for me. Alexis out there, I love her. Online student Ellen here. Wish that I could attend some classes in person. Online is definitely incredible compared to other schools. Is Mr. Robert teaching at AAU? Yes. Yes, he is. Absolutely. Thank you, Rob. Tons of support. So, hey, folks, if you don't mind, just go ahead and send some of your best wishes to Robert here for his effort tonight and his time. Once again, you know, to back Robert up, his courses are usually 6 hours long. And one of the things that we talked about was just how to make it fun and how to really capture a cool concept in a couple hours. And I think I learned a lot. So I thought this was super cool to see. And I even had my son sneaking over here, checking it out in the background. So that was really cool.
Cool. So you guys, are you going to go and cut some circles and make some holes, put them on?
Yeah, we got a ton of big thank yous out there and all that stuff for you, sir. So thank you so much. Yeah. Well, anyway, hey folks, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here once again. Thank you for all your time out there. We really appreciate you guys. Once again, please send me an email. Please contact me. I'd love to talk to you and connect you and then make sure that we answer all of your questions. Whether you're in high school right now, you're out of school, whatever it may be, feel free to send me an email. I'll be back here behind my keyboard to touch base with you all. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and end the video here, and I'll hang back and leave the chat running for a few more minutes here just to make sure that we get to all the chats. Thank you all so much. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Robert.
Take care. Do you want me to stay around, Hector?
You know what?